Welcome back, everybody. Today's going to be a short chapter. Last week we talked about, I believe, the fat cats in Washington. And this week we're going to talk about God, religious tolerance, and other shit that doesn't exist. Let's get to it. I'm an atheist. There are two types of atheists. There's the Adam Carolla type atheist, who are logical, reasonable people who don't believe in anything unless there's proof provided. Then there's the my dad was born again Christian and used to sodomize me at atheist, the one with the chip on his shoulder. These are the ones that want "In God We Trust" taken off the dollar bill, and they want the cross that's on the Los Angeles crest because it was settled by missionaries taken off the mayor's coffee mug. They draw attention to themselves by being a pain in the ass. Ironically, these people have turned atheism into a religion. I'm an atheist because I believe God doesn't exist, not because I have a score to settle with him. I understand why we invented God and why we cling to him with both hands, because we're the only species on the planet that's aware it's going to die. Pardon the pun. But I pray I'm right about this. Imagine how horrible it would be if cows and chickens knew where they were heading, not to mention bomb-sniffing dogs. Let me get this straight. When you're 9, I'll be 63, and when you're 12, I'll be dead. And you want me to go down to the airport to see if that duffel bag is filled with C4? Suck my balls. Never again. I've got it. This is why we have religion. That's the genesis of Genesis. We can't face our own mortality, so we concoct stories about God's plan and a place in the clouds where everything is perfect and you get reunited with your loved ones. I love how people always talk when I'm reading. But it's okay, that's just what happens when you live in a crap place. What if the person doesn't want to be reunited with you? Maybe your dead husband's been banging Jane Mansfield up in heaven and the last thing he wants is you showing up and ruining the party. The great cock block in the clouds. Or what if the deceased guy was married multiple times? When he gets up to heaven, which wife gets priority? When Larry King finally kicks the bucket, which he actually did just recently. It's crazy. It's going to be a Chinese fire drill. And if you lose a leg to a landmine in Darfur, is it waiting for you when you arrive? What if you got a breast reduction? Are the rest of your tits waiting for you? At every funeral, the relatives of the deceased are told, he's in a better place. Awesome. So the rest of us are stuck down here in Shitsville. And if he's in a better place, why are you bawling your eyes out? Shouldn't you be blowing a New Year's Eve's noisemaker and throwing confetti? You're crying because you know you'll never see that person again and that one day your number will be called in too. How about when your 7-year-old rides his bike into the street and gets killed by a gardening truck? Rather than deal with the horrible truth that sometimes awful things just happen, the family will say, God needed him up in heaven. Why? What does God need with a 7-year-old? Is he manufacturing Nikes? Does he need a right fielder for Heaven's Little League team and saw that little Billy had a cannon for a right arm? And even if he did need little Billy, couldn't he have taken him quietly in his sleep? He had to get dragged under an 81 Toyota pickup with a shark cage full of gardening equipment in the bed? Another way we make ourselves feel better about people passing on is by saying, he died doing what he loved. I'm sure that's a comfort to the guy who got hit by an 18-wheeler on his motorcycle. He died riding his Harley, doing what he loved. I'm pretty sure if he knew that he was going to ride his hog off to his mortal coil, he wouldn't have loved it so much. And they'll say it no matter what. Yeah, I'm sure the guy who had a heart attack in his cubicle loved crunching numbers for the plywood wholesaler. That was what he was born to do. The only time they don't say it is when the guy actually did die doing what he loved. Autoerotic asphyxiation. I sadly had to attend a funeral for a young man who died that way. I wouldn't say it was uncomfortable. I'd rather have watched my mom attempt to set the gangbang record for the dentist's car. Or dentist chair. Sorry, I can't even read. My problem with 95% of the religions is, one, they never speak of. They hate religions other than their own. They all claim to be innocent Steeler fans, but let's face it, they hate the Patriots, and once in a while a couple of rogue superfans think it would be a good idea to try and take down the Patriots team playing. And the next thing you know, we've got a fight in the stands. I'll just it's all just made up nonsense so we feel better. A lot of people like to attack Scientology and say that it's not real. It's not even a religion, that it's a cult. To me, all religions are cult. And here's my take on Scientology. Tom Cruise and John Travolta always look happy. If your religion gets you in a place where you can bang Katie Holmes and pilot a DC-10 to the America's Cup, then sign me up. I don't care if you believe in space aliens. My only interest is that someone doesn't blow me up at a disco. Most religions adopt this "if you're not for us, you're against us" mentality. How about the third option? How about the people who just don't give a shit about your retarded fantasy? I don't mind the imbeciles that buy into this nonsense. I mind that as a society we give them such a wide berth. Every once in a while you'll come across a guy who is a Disney fanatic, the one who makes the weekly pilgrimage to the Magic Kingdom, has a denim jacket covered in Donald Duck pins, and says things like, "I've ridden Pirates of the Caribbean over 30,000 times." You immediately realize the guy is a kook and start making fun of him, but you sure as F don't respect him. What's the difference between this nutbag and the guy who dresses like the Undertaker with a beard down to his waist and screws his wife through a sheet? Or the guy who treats his flock of goats better than his flock of wives and can't make it 15 minutes without falling to his knees and praying? And by the way, if I ran Guantanamo Bay, not only would I double down on the waterboarding, I'd take that arrow they have out in the rec yard and point it towards Mecca and spin it towards Vegas. I'm certainly not a student of religion, but I am a student of psychology, and there's one thing I know. When you're secure in your beliefs, you don't need a bullhorn. Think of it as a game of 21 and you just got dealt blackjack. Why do you give a shit what the guys sitting on the stool to your left or right are doing with their cards? Just sit on your ace and king and wait for the payout. You show me a guy who never stops talking about how badass he is, and I'll show you a guy who doesn't truly believe he's a badass. Randy Couture doesn't spend the better part of each day trying to convince his neighbors that he can kick their ass. I'll take it a step further. Believe me if I took most people who said they had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and knew there was a heaven and shot them up with sodium penthol and a couple of roofies. I could get them to admit that there probably wasn't a heaven and that their relationship with Jesus Christ was about as good as Angelina Jolie's relationship with Jon Voight, and then would have rough sex with them. Why waste the roofies? None of these idiots really believe in God, especially all the evangelicals and politicians who are banging male prostitutes on their nannies. Well, they just have you believe what they believe so they can take your money, get reelected, or both. If Jesse Jackson really believed in the big man in the sky, would he have knocked up a woman on his Rainbow Coalition staff when he was married for 35 years? He says God speaks to him. I guess God never sent him the message about pulling out. And Jesse was the spiritual counsel to Bill Clinton after he got caught being blown by a chunky intern. Of course, these self-righteous F-sticks don't believe it. If they did, they wouldn't engage in this behavior. Please permit me one last quick analogy. If you put me in a room, gave me a Playboy, pointed up at a camera mounted on the ceiling and said, "There's a guy who controls your destiny in the next room watching," a monitor, and I believed it, I wouldn't beat off. Wow, now we got planes coming. It's alright. Noisy. Well, I wouldn't beat off, but if I saw the camera was made of styrofoam and there were no wires going to it, I'd have at myself. These guys know they have a styrofoam camera. I hate that we have to pretend to respect all religions, especially the ones that are trying to blow up airplanes and pizza parlors or are actively involved with ethnic cleansing. Someone should just call them what they are, nut jobs. And don't give me that shit where it's not all of them, it's only a small percentage. Sure, it was a small percentage, but it's enough to bring down the Twin Towers. I don't blame them. They're nuts. I blame us for not shouting, "You're effing nuts." I don't respect your retarded beliefs. Now what are you going to do about it? Nothing, because your stupid religion has kept you in the Stone Age. What are you going to do? Fly your fleet of Mach 3 jets over New York and bomb it? No, you're so backward technology that you have to use our planes to bomb us. Here's my question to all people and religions. It's the same thing I want to ask the communists out there. How's it going? How's it working out for you? I watch the news and it doesn't look like it's going so well. These people who tell you all religions should be respected are the same idiots that have the coexist bumper sticker on their Prius. Who is this message for? You're pulling into the Whole Foods in West Hollywood and parking with 9 other Priuses sporting coexist bumper stickers? It's preaching to the choir. Actually, the gay men's chorus. The people who need to get all religious are beautiful and can't work in harmony message aren't there. Do you think Ahmadinejad is pulling his armored SUV in behind you to pick up a $9 organic avocado and a wheatgrass smoothie? This would be like going to a Beverly Hills private school to deliver an important message about staying out of gangs. Your stupid bumper sticker is falling on deaf eyes. The people who really should get the coexist message are literally on the other side of the world. The regions that need these stickers barely have cars to put them on. And again, they wouldn't need this coexist idea anyway. They'd stone you to death for having the audacity of driving as a woman. Coexist. If you have this sticker on your car, please drive into oncoming traffic, it says. No matter how crazy the religion is, we need to respect it. What about cults? Cults are religions, but instead of churches, they have compounds, and instead of priests, they have bearded weirdos with acoustic guitars. Every cult starts out as peace, love, and folk music, but eventually gives way to bring me all the 13-year-old girls. All cults are about 50-year-old white guys nailing teenage runaways. I was thinking about the Manson family. I'm not proud of it, but whenever they show that archival footage of 1971, I think, not bad. Those chicks were 19 and hot. Charlie essentially had a harem. Let me tell you something about these chicks. If Charlie could hand them a steak knife, tell them to go up the hill, break into a stranger's house, and brutally stab anyone who's inside of it, and they say fine, believe me, there's nothing they wouldn't do in the bedroom. Orgies and backdoor loving are light lifting compared to breaking in through the back door of LeBlanc's resident, LaBianca's resident, and Charlie was the messiah to them. There's nothing they wouldn't do with him, to him, or to each other while he watched. He had a good thing going. I'm betting at some point when Manson declared, okay, we're going to take the harem of hot 19-year-olds, put them in the van, and tell them to stab random Los Angelinos. Text Watson said, you know what? Maybe just one more day-long orgy. Let's get the race riot started next weekend. I'll get some Boone's Farm, you get some weed, and let's just daisy chain it. Just one more time before we send them off to prison for the rest of their lives. What was Manson thinking? You have some land, there's no such thing as AIDS, and have a bunch of hot 19-year-old runaways, and you're going to get them all thrown in the joint? Believe me, I would still be on that dirt patch in Chatsworth having sex if I were Charlie. That's how you know he was nuts. Not the stabbing, but he gave up the 19-year-old poo nanny. It makes me sick. Every time you argue with a religious person, they pose this question. If you're walking down a dark alley, would you rather encounter a group of Christians or a group of atheists? Before I answer that, let me ask you a question. Wow. Blender now. This is just a fun day. And they're racing, but okay, would you rather encounter a group of Christians or atheists? Before I answer that, let me ask you one question, my religious zealot friends. What percentage of inmates on death row are atheist or agnostic? Of course, I'd rather deal with people who had their own internal moral compass rather than a group that could stab me and be absolved of their sins. And where is this alley? And what year is it? Not if the alley is in Jerusalem during the Crusades. I wish we could adopt the same policy with religion and the army adopted some years ago in regards to chugging cock. Don't ask, don't tell. I won't ask you who you're currently praying to. You shut the F up about your Santa in the sky. And speaking of the army, if you get out of line, we send over the Predator drones. Thank you, and I'll see you in hell. Boy, that guy is one crazy dude. Next week, foods I have beef with. It's a long chapter, so get ready, people. Settle in. And this is Pop reading from the Book of Carolla, Until next time.